On a chilly October night, the city park lay cloaked in an unsettling silence. The usual sounds of rustling leaves and distant traffic seemed to vanish, leaving only the weight of stillness hanging in the air. Harrison, a seasoned police officer with years of experience, was patrolling the park, his breath forming small clouds in the cold night. Recently, the city had been haunted by a series of brutal murders, each targeting black victims, sending waves of sorrow and fear through the community. Harrison was haunted by each new crime scene. The innocent lives lost to such cruelty weighed heavily on his heart. As he made his way through a dimly lit section of the park, his gaze shifted to a small, shadowed figure huddled against a tree. Approaching carefully, he realized it was a young girl, no older than 10, her frail body shivering from both cold and fear. Her face was gaunt, her cheeks hollow, and her eyes wide with terror. He crouched down, trying not to startle her, but when he took a step closer, she flinched, leapt to her feet, and darted away. Reacting instinctively, Harrison pursued her, calling out gently, hoping to calm her fears. Finally, she slowed, her tiny legs unable to carry her any further. Exhausted, she stopped, and with a trembling voice, she revealed her name, Josie. As they spoke, Harrison discovered that Josie was the only survivor of a family recently torn apart by the same murderer he'd been hunting. Compassion surged through him. This child had lost everything. Not wanting to leave her alone in her terror, Harrison offered to take Josie home, hoping to shelter her from the darkness that had already stolen so much from her. Day by day, Harrison cared for Josie as best as he could. He tried to create a safe space for her, cooking her favorite meals, teaching her little tricks to distract her mind, and reading stories before bed. Yet despite his efforts, the memories of her family's murder lingered like a haunting shadow. She remained withdrawn, her small voice rarely heard, her smile a rare and fragile thing. Determined, Harrison took it upon himself to find the monster responsible for her loss, each day growing more resolved to bring Josie peace. One evening, as he tucked Josie into bed, his phone rang. His colleague on the other end reported another gruesome murder, but this time there was a survivor. Harrison rushed to the scene, his heart pounding, fearing that he might arrive too late. On the side of the road, he found a young woman with long golden hair, unconscious but alive. Her face bore fresh bruises, and her clothes were torn, yet she clung to life. Gently, Harrison helped her into his car and took her to the station for medical attention. When she woke, she introduced herself as Rose Evelyn, a local schoolteacher. She described with a trembling voice how she had narrowly escaped the attacker while walking home. Harrison listened, feeling a deep empathy for her, and soon the two of them formed a special bond that felt unexpectedly natural. With her too afraid to return home, Harrison's protective instincts took over, and he offered her a place to stay for the night. Days turned into weeks, and as Rose stayed on, the warmth she brought into his home filled a long-held void. Harrison found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't anticipated. They shared meals, laughter, and moments of quiet understanding, and it wasn't long before he realized he felt something profound for her. Rose, too, seemed to open up, becoming a part of the little household that was slowly mending itself. She even began to care for Josie, and as their bond deepened, Harrison dared to dream of a future where they could be a family. A mother for Josie, a partner for him, and a life built on shared trust. But one night, as he watched from a distance, he noticed something odd. Rose returned home and knelt to greet Josie, giving her a gentle pat on the head. But Josie shrank back, a look of raw fear flashing across her face. At first, Harrison brushed it off, thinking it was just a reaction rooted in the trauma Josie had endured. But then he saw Rose pull her hand back and wipe it on her shirt with an almost imperceptible look of disgust. The gesture was so subtle, so fleeting, he wondered if he had imagined it. Later that night, as Rose slept, Harrison's mind swirled with a strange unease he couldn't shake. His thoughts returned to the murders, to the victims who had been robbed of their lives, and to Josie, the only one who knew the face of the person who had taken her family. Driven by a newfound urgency, Harrison slipped into his office to go through the evidence once more, meticulously piecing together every shred of information he had. As he sifted through the crime scene photos, reports, and witness statements, something caught his eye. There, hidden within a sequence of numbers left at each crime scene, was a message, a pattern he hadn't noticed before. Mapping the numbers to letters, he pieced together a chilling revelation. The letters spelled out a name he now knew too well: Rose Evelyn. His heart stopped, a cold dread settling in as he stared at her name. The woman he loved, the woman he had brought into his home, was the very monster responsible for the deaths of so many, including Josie's family. A sickening clarity washed over him, Josie's fear, her silent withdrawal. It all made sense now. Rose was the person Josie had sensed danger from all along. Heart pounding, Harrison rushed to the bedroom, but Rose was gone. Panic surged within him as he dashed to Josie's room, only to find Rose standing over her with a knife pressed to the girl's throat. "If you take one more step, she dies," Rose's voice cut through the air, cold and void of any warmth. Harrison froze, his heart breaking at the sight of Josie's terror-stricken face. "Why are you doing this?" he choked out. "Why did you kill them?" Rose's eyes flashed with a burning hatred. "Because I hate them. I hate all of them. My stepfather was black, and he tormented me my entire childhood. This is my revenge." Her confession sent shivers down Harrison's spine. In that tense moment, Josie, mustering every ounce of courage, bit down hard on Rose's hand. Rose yelped, losing her grip just long enough for Harrison to draw his gun. Without hesitation, he fired. The bullet struck Rose, and she collapsed to the floor, her life extinguished. In the eerie silence that followed, Josie burst into tears. This time, they were tears of relief. She looked up at Harrison, her voice soft and trembling, as she whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Harrison, overcome with emotion, held her close, vowing to protect her with every fiber of his being. The nightmare that had cast a shadow over their lives had finally ended. In the days that followed, Harrison was celebrated for his bravery, promoted to police chief, and surrounded by the support of a grateful community. Josie now had a real family, and Harrison wasted no time in finalizing the adoption. Weeks later, Harrison visited Rose's grave. Placing a bouquet of lilies on the cold earth, he stood in silence, his mind a tempest of conflicting emotions. Without a word, he turned and walked away, the sun setting behind him, casting his shadow over the grave. It was a relief, a life that at long last was free of darkness. He returned home to Josie, carrying with him a heart finally at peace, ready to embrace a new chapter filled with hope and love.